Welcome everyone. Nice to see you on this Monday. Thank you. We have a small group today, but that's okay. It's our Monday after Thanksgiving, so people might still be in that mode, holiday mode. We're in our final 2 weeks of Ango, so we're kind of in the home stretch of it's been a very deep and rich Ango. And I appreciate everybody coming tonight. When I imagine the gratitude that those who couldn't make it tonight, feel for all of us who can make it, and we're kind of holding the space and the container of our Sangha practice. And so in the days when you can't make it, you can share your gratitude with those who can make it. So as a Sangha, we continue with our energy. Yeah, I like doing our service here. We've introduced it into the Shambhala Center once a month here, and it's really at the core of our practice is to offer up whatever merit we develop in our practice, to others, to the world. It's the good karma that we're generating through our practice, and that's our theme of Ango this fall is karma in crisis. So our service, the way I see it, it's right at the heart of practicing that, really expressly giving up the merits of what we're doing throughout space and time, to those in need, without a thought of getting anything back in return, just to really give it all, exhaust ourselves in our offering, to the world. And when we do that, we find that, well, there's so much more that just grows within us and fills us back up. We're filled by giving so much. So that's at the heart of our practice. So I've got a couple of more talks to give this Monday and next Monday during this Ango, and then we have our Rahatsu next Saturday. So if you haven't signed up for Rahatsu, please do. We'll have a couple of people taking our Jukai. And then we'll have our Shiso Hosen ceremony on the Sunday. So it should prove to be deep and beautiful. So hope you can attend. Yeah. So I'll share a little bit more on some expressions that have come to me, related somewhat to karma. We'll have some discussion afterwards, so you can share your thoughts on it too. But one thing that just really stimulated me yesterday, I was watching a YouTube video, and it was an interview with Nora Bateson. She's the daughter of Gregory Bateson, who some of you might have heard of, kind of a philosopher, anthropologist, thinker from the previous century, and very, very deep thinker. And she now has extended his work and manages an institute dedicated to their teachings of cybernetics and systems theory, systems thinking. The interview was with a wonderful YouTube channel called the Essentia Foundation. I don't know if anybody else is keyed into it. It's really good. It's kind of based on the teachings, I would say, of analytic idealism, a fellow named Bernardo Kastrup, who kind of integrated a lot of philosophical thinking, metaphysical thinking, technological thinking, in I think a way that's really resonates with me and is very, very consistent with Buddhism. It's kind of turns the materialist paradigm on its head. This kind of materialist paradigm that we're living in, that everything is just inert matter, and we're individual beings. Consciousness, is an epiphenomenon of the brain, this whole kind of trance dream that some people think is reality, the nature of reality. But our Buddhist practice and the Dharma, points to a different kind of alignment of reality, where mind is the basis, consciousness is the basis of reality, and matter is you could say, an epiphenomenon of mind. So with mind being primal, But you know, as soon as I make any sort of definitive statement, you know, in that regard, then you know, you should knock me on my head and say, no, that's not true either. So I'll do it before you can do it. Yeah, but that's not true either. But this sort of metaphysics, you could say, is deeply inspiring and opening for me, whereas a more physicalist paradigm is very closing, you know, limiting to me. So that's my experience of it. But anyway, this YouTube channel has wonderful interviews with philosophers and technologists and thinkers and anthropologists, and it's run out of the Netherlands. But anyway, she was being interviewed, and the whole interview was quite good. But one thing that she said really struck me. She said, "A change in perception is an action." Yeah. So, as we know, you know, the word karma means action, and we've all been talking about, you know, how karma is created by our thoughts, as well as our speech, as well as by our actions or bodily actions. But to really understand the karma that's created by our thoughts and our intentions, I think is a very important part, you know, of the practice. And it's the one that I've been trying to bring forth, our sensitivity to this, for the last few months. I talked at our retreat a couple of Saturdays ago. You know, it was all about the choices that we have, the thousands of choices we have over the course of the day. So every one of those being a moment of action that creates karma, a choice point. That when we act on that choice point, we create karma, and it can be negative or positive. So there's an action actually in the change of perception itself. Okay? Now, if that's a volitional action, so if you initiate volitionally a change in your own perception, you're creating karma right there. Okay? So I'd like you to hold that, you know, as a point of practice, you know, through your practice and through your life. So you think about koans. You know, if you practice koans and you get it, and you've initiated a shift in perspective in your koan, you've created karma. You've created positive karma in that, the wholeness that you've introduced into the world just through the change in perception. Let's create some positive karma. Blue Cliff Record, Case 52, Joshu Stone Bridge. A monk asked Joshu, "For a long time I've heard of the stone bridge of Joshu, but now that I've come here, I just see a simple log bridge." Joshu said, "You just see the log bridge. You don't see the stone bridge." The monk said, "What is the stone bridge?" Joshu said, "It lets asses cross. It lets horses cross." Okay. So I want to appreciate various dimensions of this, some quizzical views here. Okay, so there actually was a stone bridge near where Joshu had his hermitage, or not his hermitage, his group. And I don't think his group was very large. Nansen's group, he studied in a large group with Nansen, but I think his own group, I'm not sure it was that large. But you know, during this time of Zen practice, I just read this, it was interesting this morning, is that it was really during the Ango periods that people hunkered down and stayed with a teacher or a group for those 3 months. And then in between Ango periods, they often would travel around to other places. So this is during one of those periods, you know, outside of an Ango period where this monk comes to visit Joshu. So this was very common. You'd have a visiting monk come in, and then there would often be a kind of a testing between the monk and the teacher to kind of gauge each other, right? So that's what's happening here. You know, this is a time when to have a really nicely designed stone bridge was a thing, was quite a thing. And what I read was that there were actually 3 stone bridges in all of China, maybe this area. stone bridge. So he came to be associated with the area, as was the custom in those days, that a Zen teacher would take the name of the mountain they lived on or the region they lived in. So the stone bridge of Joshu, he was referred to by that name, but it was meant also to bring out his quality as a teacher, right? The depth, the strength, and the power of his quality as a teacher, right? The image of going from one shore to another is, of course, a classic Buddhist image, right? Going to the other shore. So what does a bridge do? It helps you go from one shore to the other shore. So you could say that a teacher is a bridge. And to a certain extent, you know, all of us are bridges. So we can talk more about that. Now Joshu's getting this quality that he's appreciating, that it's this solid stone bridge, impressive, magnificent, you know, the fruit, the product of great labor and practice, strong. Okay. Now the monk comes and he says something quite potentially insulting, right, with his challenge, right? I've heard of the stone bridge of Joshu, but now that I've come, I just see a simple log bridge. So a log bridge is basically just a log. I thought at first it was, you know, made out of logs, but no, it's actually just a log laid across the stream. So, you know, very, very modest. So for him to call him a log bridge versus a stone bridge is quite the knock, right? All right. I just see a simple log bridge. You know, pretty insulting, actually. Now, it is a testing question, so there might have been some insight. We don't know for sure, but what we do know is the artfulness of Joshu's responses here to him. He basically says, you know, the first thing he says is, you just see the log bridge, you don't see the stone bridge. So the log bridge is you could say it's the human dimension. It's the ordinary. It's the special part. It's the karmic identity, you could say. You're just an old man. You know, I was expecting a great teacher, right? Joshu says, well, that's all you see. That's all you see. You don't see the stone bridge. So Joshu his mastery was about verbal exchange with people. He instantly met people where they were, and I fancy, you know, having studied him for a long time, that I think there was a gentleness to his words. I don't think he was like a aggressive teacher, the way some are. There's an artfulness and a gentleness and a creativity in his expression. I don't think you ever got the sense you were being preached at all. You know, just that here's an old guy engaging you in conversation, and then, you know, you leave him and you're like, whoa, what was that? What happened there? That's kind of my sense. So you don't see the log bridge. You just see the log bridge. You don't see the stone bridge. So that turned him, you know, just how undefensive Joshu was. I think that's the thing that comes through with his first line here, right? You would expect a master to be potentially insulted, defensive, explanatory, and Joshu's not any of that. Not any of that. Right? Just, well, you don't see the stone bridge. So what's the monk's next question? What is the stone bridge? Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you went looking for it. What is the stone bridge? Well, good. Glad you're finally asking that question. And Joshu says, it lets asses cross, it lets horses cross. Okay. So, what's this? You know, maybe the horses are the regal, you know, the regal self, the accomplished self, you know, our more enlightened nature. And asses are our more human, flawed, deluded nature. Okay. So this bridge that Joshu manifests, doesn't discriminate between those things. Okay. Enlightened, deluded, regal, base, sacred, profane, big, small. All of those minds of measurement, you know, he's manifesting right now the actual nature of reality. The nature of our reality is the stone bridge, the essential ground of our being. Does it discriminate in any way? No. It accepts everything. Everyone, without exception. Yeah. So this koan introduces, you know, great reflections for us. There's the horses, there's the asses, there's the stone bridge, there's the log bridge, there's this shore, there's that shore. There's a lot of different things to kind of reflect on here. One of which is, well, am I a horse or an ass? Yeah, it's one thing it kind of brings up for us. Because we have these judgments about ourselves. You know, many of us want to be horses but feel we're asses. Many of us feel we're horses and don't want to be asses, but secretly are, perhaps. Right? So what about you? You know, do you really accept all the aspects of yourself, all the flawed, messy, muddy, deluded, confused aspects of yourself? Do you also accept, you know, the regal, the enlightened, the large, the empowered, the vital, the creative aspects of yourself? Do you really accept those? Allow those to flourish? Or are you constantly, you know, subtly, you have these subtle relationships of contrivance with those aspects of yourself? You know, even when we get into our practice, you know, we tend to perhaps ascribe ass-like qualities and horse-like qualities to certain aspects of our practice. Maybe even to other members of the Sangha, maybe to our teachers, maybe to certain practices. That's ass-like, that's horse-like. With the judgments and preferences around those things. An awakened nature accepts it all. With relation to karma, the monk asks, what is the stone bridge? So, he's asking for a description of a thing, right? We're in the world of nouns. What is the stone bridge? Joshu doesn't give him a description of the stone bridge. He gives him a description of how the stone bridge operates. It's the activity, if you will, of the stone bridge. We're in the realm of verbs. It lets asses cross, and it lets horses cross. He goes right to its activity, which of course isn't quite an activity, is it? Or is it? It's a verb, you know, it lets asses cross. But it's an allowance. Yeah. You know, what's involved in this activity? Remember, as I started, a change in perception is an action. So how about this? What's involved with this? To be a stone bridge and to allow asses to cross and horses to cross. What's the action there? What's the karma being created when you allow asses and horses to cross from one shore to another? So look into this. I feel like within each of us, you know, we have both shores, and we can make ourselves bridges. We can make ourselves a log bridge. We can make ourselves to be a stone bridge by actualizing our true nature, our Buddha nature, that accepts all the parts of ourselves, all the parts of the world, all beings, and allows them to move towards the shore of realization. One commentator says, in fact, it's Hakuin, because this is from the Blue Cliff Record. So we have our commentary from Tenkei and Hakuin. It's Tenkei actually says, so Joshu, this is commenting on the line, it lets asses cross, it lets horses cross. He paraphrases that and he says, you know, Joshu is saying, well, if you want to cross the stone bridge, go ahead. It's wide open. And he says, inviting the monk onto the highway of true normalcy. Those are Tenkei's words. I like that so much. Inviting the monk onto the highway of true normalcy. Yeah, the monk is looking for, you know, something special, and he's missing it. Right? Because the specialness is in the ordinary. It's in the normal. It's in the old man who looks like a log bridge. It's in your own humanity, messiness, confusion, frustrations. So I want to touch really briefly just on. I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to touch real briefly on Dogen's Dogen Senshin, Three Minds, that he brings into instructions to the cook. Yeah. So. And I want to just remember, you know, this change in perspective is an action. A change in perception is an action, right? So in the Tenzo Kyokan, Dogen talks about 3 minds that he says are the essential to practicing in the work of the Tenzo, right? The work of the cook in the monastery. And as most of you know, the position of the cook is a very high-level position in a monastery. So for me, that's kind of the archetype of how to work in the world. So what Dogen talks about in Instructions to the Cook is the attitude, the perception, the minds that we should cultivate when we do all of our work in the world, and he talks about the 3 minds. They're Daishin, Roshin, and Joshin. Roshin and Kishin. Daishin is magnanimous mind, or big mind. Roshin is parental mind, and then Kishin is joyful mind. Those are the 3 essential minds. And this is, each one of these is worthy of a talk and a whole exploration in itself. So I'm not gonna go into that. But I did want to touch on these. The segue being, the stone bridge is big mind. It's got that quality of big mind, accepting everything without discrimination. Okay, really accepting everything in the biggest context. Okay, non-judgmentally. It's the spacious, impartial mind that is not caught by preference or bias and can fully accept and work with whatever conditions arise. Dogen says, big mind is tolerant and views everything from the broadest perspective. Okay. So you say zoom out, right? Zoom out. Biggest perspective. Everything in the biggest perspective. We have so much conditioning around seeing everything in very small perspectives, in very small contexts, because our personal preferences are so wrapped up, in our local kind of day-to-day lives. And we have to see it in the broadest perspective, see everything without having preference or bias. There's some really wonderful discussion in the Precepts WhatsApp thread recently around the difference between discernment and preference and opinion. I think those were the 3 that came across recently. So it's a really good question. Yeah, it is, and it's very important. It's to recognize where a discernment leads to a preference, and it's how. I think if we look at ourselves, there's almost always a preference that comes whenever a discernment is. There's almost always a preference. That kind of unbiased, neutral perspective is rare. It's rare to have the kind of intimacy of discernment along with the neutrality, right? We can have the neutrality when we don't care. It's like, whatever. Well, not even paying attention to it, so I don't have a preference. That's not our practice. Our practice is actually to be intimately discerning, but also non-preferential or unbiased. Something we can talk about. So that's big mind. Big mind is to really hold all of that, to see all of that, to have that perspective. So we can practice this. This is the karma that we're creating. We're creating good karma by shifting our perceptions to seeing things in a broader context. It's maybe, I'm going to talk about parental mind next. And, parental mind, I think we can it's easier to see the good karma that's created by parental mind. It's like, I'm taking care of things, and everything in my work environment, everything in my life, I'm giving great care as if, the leaf of grass is my own eyeball. That's the metaphor that Dogen uses in this work. Or you could say that every person that I'm working with is my child, that kind of love. And you can see, it's easy to kind of see the good karma that's created when you cultivate that mind. But how about the good karma created by magnanimous mind? It's quite deep and profound. And then finally we have joyful mind, and I do want to end with joyful mind, because more and more or maybe just these days, I'm really appreciating how important it is to like find our joy. Find our joy in your work, in your practice, in your life. Have that be your guide. It doesn't get talked about a lot in Zen practice, maybe in a lot of spiritual practice, but those of you who sat sesshin, with me over the years know that my introductory remarks in every session, I always say, enjoy your practice, enjoy your day today. It's very important. It's very important not to take our practice as a project, as a burdensome activity, but to really find the lightness and joy. That should be our lodestone. That should be your compass of your work. And right here, Dogen is saying this is equally as important as parental mind and big mind when we're working in the world, when we're, say, creating karma, good or bad, making all these choices that we do thousands of times a day. To have that joyful inspiration, be a part of it. So that takes some self-reflection, I think. I find it to be that case. I don't always, maybe I'm not always aware of how much I'm enjoying myself and whether I'm enjoying myself. Maybe it's my Catholic upbringing, maybe it's my workaholism, maybe it's my little bit of OCD-ness I have. I actually have to check in sometimes to recognize how much I'm enjoying or not enjoying what I'm doing. So that's a good practice. So the more and more we practice, these shifts of perception, the more we actualize ourselves as a stone bridge for asses and horses and rabbits and rats and mice and snakes and ants to cross continuously. Let's be like that.